Hey everybody, welcome to Super Comic Fun Time. In today's show, we are going to be taking a look at comics that are on sale on Comixology. Now, I've wanted to be doing this for a long time. It's already December 28th. Most of the sales I'll talk about today and on January 2nd, so that's still plenty of time to be able to get to Comixology and see if there's anything you want. Now, I'm really most excited to talk about DC and then Marvel and then maybe anything else. Prior to that, and I'm going to share the screen right now. Prior to that, I want to, for you people who might not be familiar with Comixology. Now, Comixology is the premier online store for digital comics. What you can see here is, this is my account. There's my name there. Normally, in these crawls, they have what's on sale. So it's the end of the year, and excuse me. And they list the sales. They also promote the new releases. So Wednesday, New Comic Book Day, Black Panther came out, and Marvel is promoting that. There's a DC holiday sale I'm going to get into momentarily. And I think that's it for this. But you might be asking yourself, how do I know if digital comics are for me? Well, if you come here, like under quick links, you will see a free comics section. And before I get too much further, I want to try to remember to start these videos asking for you to subscribe and give it a thumbs up if you like it. Also, down below, there'll be links to most of the things I talk about if there's a link for it. If there is no link, well, then, yeah, there won't be anything there. But my Amazon affiliate will be down there too. I link it directly to comic books and graphic novels for your perusing pleasure. But you can shop for anything from that link. You can start there and just go and look for what you might want. Now, here in this free section, you can see I collect a lot of the free ones when they come out. I don't always read them. Some of them, like this one is a free preview edition of Mr. Miracle. I haven't read that yet because I'm excited for when they collect it all together. But if it's free, I'll take it. We got Mutant Ninja Turtles. I haven't actually read any of these here that are free, but I did. You can see I did select them. Now, in my opinion, the best way to read Comixology books is to have a small tablet. I've got a very inexpensive Asus. Got it for 99 cents, and I pretty much just use it for comic book reading. I've also read them on my iPhone. It's not quite as enjoyable, but this is what getting a free comic book or two. I do find the worst way to read them is through my computer. Now here you can go ahead, and I don't know what will happen if I go to full screen. So here you can see this hasn't resized. I find a lot of problems with reading comics on a desktop computer. So let's see, you can do one page, you can do guided view. Okay, there it goes. And then as you click to the right, it moves on, and you can see that it gives you, it's not bad, but sometimes because this book is more or less being streamed or being downloaded as I page, if I have an internet problem, it's going to cause me to stall, and my internet is not necessarily the best. But you can see how that works, and it's pretty good. I can read it on the computer if I want to, but I do prefer reading it off of a tablet, or worst case, my iPhone, just because I can download the books to there, and then if I don't have an internet connection, I can still read them. So having said that, let me go back to, okay, so we are going to go to the sales now. You can see, like, when I came out, well, I don't know if you can see. I don't know what the screen sharing shows, but it kind of changed the size of my browser. And then let's just go here. Oh, I didn't want to do that. That's going to new. And yeah, there we go. Let's hit going to the home. And then I'm just going to click on DC Holiday Sale. We're going to start here because I never grew up being a DC kid, but I find a lot of their comic books I do enjoy now that I'm older and don't have that same sort of territorial. So you can see this sale ends at 11 o'clock or 10:59 EST on the 4th of January 2018. So, you know, in just a few days. Let's see. So here we go. We can see the ones I've got as I flow through this. And so far, I don't own anything here. These are all the recent releases. So this is all, so yeah, you can even pick up, like, this is DC Universe Rebirth, Batman, and normal price is $12.99. You can pick it up for $4.99. Here we go. Here's some I do own. The Joker, which was kind of a disgusting book. Not as bad as Arkham Asylum. I'm not a big fan of Arkham Asylum. The artwork put me off, and I did kind of like the story. So here we have, here's another one I own. I owned Batman R.I.P., which was a Grant Morrison book. It ties into Final Crisis. It was kind of confusing at points, but it was also kind of fun. This one was really good, The Black Mirror. This is Scott Snyder before the New 52, and in a lot of ways, a lot of things that, in fact, I just reread the Batman #1 after reading this a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to pick up on more. I didn't need to read this in order to start with the New 52 Batman #1, but when I read this and then went back to it, I picked up on some details I hadn't picked up on before. Here's the classic, The Dark Knight Returns. I have bought the combined, I have this one and this one both in, how you say, in the hardcover editions or the softcover editions, and I also have it on Comixology because I think I got both of them together for $4.99. We might see that here. The Long Halloween, that was a fun one. Let's see, I've got a couple of Wonder Woman. I don't know, oh yeah, right here. Haven't read it yet, the George Perez Volume 1. George Perez is very famous for working on the Teen Titans with Marv Wolfman and doing the fantastic artwork in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Here we go. We've got Blackest Night, Green Lantern, the Sinestro Corps War. You know, I have to go back and reread these two. This one I didn't like just because it was kind of gross. I mean, it's not as bad as Marvel Zombies, but it's pretty much DC's Marvel Zombies. And this one I just found, I liked it. I like how it began. I think I started to reread it recently, like the first chapter. I like how it begins, but eventually everything ends up in these big space wars, and I can't really follow what's going on. I found that confusing after a while. Here's Flashpoint, which led to the New 52. I pretty much enjoyed this one. I liked it better than, I did see the DC animated movie, and I do like the book better than the movie. Brightest Day, now, it's confusing to me, but I like Brightest Day a lot better than Blackest Night or the Sinestro Corps War. But I did like Green Lantern Rebirth a lot too. I found that to be good. Convergence, the issue nobody likes. I'm so tempted to get it and just read it, but I've got so much other stuff to read. I've banned myself from buying anything new from Comixology, except possibly just to be a completist, to get the Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. You know, it sounds kind of interesting, although, like, you know, I watched Sal on back issues kind of say it isn't that great. And Identity Crisis, I really liked. This, I don't know what this is. If it's a new, I guess it says it's a new edition. So, of course, I don't feel like buying the same book twice. 0 Hour, this one also was very, you know, I guess, to be honest, a lot of these I find very confusing on my first read. I found Crisis to be very confusing and not very exciting on my first read. This one I like better, and I liked both of them better on my second read. Kingdom Come, that was pretty good. Like to read DC's Invasion. I saw the Comic Pop back issues on that. I have fewer Superman issues. I think the only Superman book I have is Superman Doomed. And then we go into Sandman. Now, I've got this one in the soft cover, so I didn't get the digital version. And then I've got all of the the digital versions of the main run. I didn't get like, you know, these side books here, but that was very good. I got Injustice. Injustice is very good. Now, I read Civil War before I read Injustice, and when I heard about this, it sounded like Civil War done right. And, you know, make of that what you will. I read Civil War coming out of, when I first started to get back, I bought the trade when Age of Ultron came out, and I heard like the next Captain America movie was going to be the Civil War, and I liked the movie a lot better than the book. The book, it's kind of a bummer because Captain America turns out to, even though he's not the bad guy, they kind of make him out to be the bad guy, and it just, you know, there's just a lot of fighting. Then there's things that don't make sense, like, okay, spoilers. Peter Parker reveals his identity. That's like one of the famous things from it. And that didn't bother me too much because I could see kind of how they were going with that. But then like the Punisher, like Steve Rogers is trying to get even criminals who are against like the 100-point thesis that Tony Stark and Reed Richards got going with their secret prisons and whatnot. He's trying to get anybody who will help in fighting this kind of fascist government. And as soon as these criminals show up, the Punisher just shoots them. And I go, no. I mean, to me, it's like, that's just so reflexive. I really only know the Punisher from a Spider-Man issue I read when I was still in high school. I haven't read any of the new stuff. And at that time, he was working on anger management. And instead of using real bullets against criminals, he was using dum-dum rounds. And when I saw The Tick, and you have that character in The Tick who's kind of a satire of the Punisher, and he's at the bar, and you can tell he's like been stressed out, but he's like trying to work through it. That's where I kind of saw the character going. And I think that is one problem with comic books is, you know, characters have to be static to an extent. You can have, as long as you're willing, I don't have a problem with having like 50 different universes. And, you know, if it works, it works, you know, and it keeps going. If it doesn't work, well, then you just cancel it. And then you can just, you know, just have like a graphic, you know, maybe 50 different Spider-Man graphic novels that aren't in the same continuity. I guess DC does that a lot. Maybe that's why I'm becoming more of a DC person, because even though it's fun to have this giant 75-year continuity, or however long it is, I could do the math, but it'll slow down the video. It's just like having these Elseworlds, you know, like Gotham by Gaslight. If they're not called Elseworlds, I apologize. But, you know, just having the freedom to say, okay, this is our main continuity, but we're going to have these stories here. And I guess Marvel did do that with the Ultimates. But from what I've heard, some of that, you know, I heard the Spider-Man was really good, but then they have things with cannibalism and weird stuff like that. And I might be confusing it with the Max series too. Anyways, so superhero graphic novels, I would say, of anything I've read, I can't remember if I read it this year or last year, but 52 was really good. Now, 52 takes place after Infinite Crisis. Do you need to read Infinite Crisis to enjoy the new 52? If you're a completist, you're going to want to anyways. But if you're a casual reader and you just want to read the best stories, I would say 52 is the best story. And, you know, go watch Comics Explained take on Infinite Crisis or the comic story, and just get like, you know, the understanding what's happening. Essentially what happens is the main trinity of Justice League kind of disappear for a year. That's what the 52 refers to. So it was a weekly comic book that came out. I think it was around 2008, 2007. I'm not exactly sure, even though I read it. But the thing about it was, the nice thing about this, so it was like the print release of this was 2015, so, or 2013. So it probably took a while to collect it together. So maybe 2011 or 2010, maybe as late as 2012. Anyways, this story was really good, and it's you've got 4 writers. You've got Jeff Johns, Grant Morrison, Greg Rucka, and Mark Waid. And somehow you have these 4 egos, these 4 talented writers coming together, working on this book, getting it out once a week. And I guess they stayed on time. The artwork is great. And, you know, each, you have these different characters like that you follow their arc. Like a lot of it is Booster Gold. Like Booster Gold knows what the future is supposed to be, so he can't wait to get there on the reforming of the Justice League after the crisis is over, and then it doesn't happen. And so you got his arc, and then you've got Lex Luthor creating a drug to make people into superheroes if they, you know, metahumans, if they have the right gene. And the thing about it is he wants to have superpowers so bad, and so he keeps, you know, he finds the people who can take the drug, but nothing works for him to be able to take it and give him superpowers. And he is just a bastard at times during that story. That's like probably one of the great, and you know, it's all part of this whole thing. This whole thing is like 4 mini books, and I think they've recently collected together maybe in 1 full volume. I am not too sure on that. I remember something about it. And so, yeah, that is great. Looks like here they have a DC special. Then you have these Westerns, but it's graphic novels. And, you know, I'm just kind of staying on the surface here. Each of these have like, you know, pages and pages. So like some of these you could save up to 80%, it said in the sale. And I find it to be true. There's like books in here that will save you the money. So this is the Vertigo, and we've already seen the Sandman's. Vertigo was a special imprint in the 80s it started, and it ran more adult-themed stories without the comics code. And one of the very famous, maybe it's even the first Vertigo title, is Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. And I read that whole thing about 2 years ago, and it was really, really good. As you know, I've got the Bronze Age Omnibus, which I've read like a few of the stories in there, and that's really good too. And you can, you know, it was very respectful. And of course, Len Wein was the editor on Alan Moore's book. So, you know, he could probably like, and I'm not sure where it is in this whole thing. A lot of these I don't have. Fables is supposed to be very good. I've never read it. Hellblazer, like, I just got the first 3 issues of that. I haven't read that yet. That's why I am not buying anything, because I've got so much to read on my tablet. And I've got so much to read in real life. The Preacher, this one was pretty good. Of course, they made a TV show out of it. Are these out of order? Yeah, for whatever reason, they're being sorted out of order. I read at least the first volume of this, and that was pretty good. So yeah, oh yeah, there's the Swamp Thing. So yeah, I've got all of those. This was a very, very good series. It's, you know, I read some blog site call it, how do you say, a graphic novel on its own. Now, I didn't find its continuity as tightly written as The Dark Knight Returns. I still think that as far as that goes, I mean, this was a monthly book coming out, and I think The Dark Knight Returns was always, it was like a 4-issue miniseries. And so when you do that, you can like have a tighter story. But it was still like a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, learned a lot about it. Prior to this, I only really knew Swamp Thing. I think I read 1 issue when I was a kid, and it didn't appeal to me. I can't say why that is. Probably because I was a Marvel kid, and Man-Thing was a more interesting monster to me, because Man-Thing couldn't talk. I mean, how do you write stories? So I always found Man-Thing stories much more interesting. I wasn't sure which one might be a ripoff of another, or if either were, but I found the monster who couldn't talk and who was kind of just driven by this, you know, if somebody feels fear, he has to touch him and cause him to burn. I found that concept more interesting. Of course, that would be better for a graphic novel too. You know, you might want to write a more limited story. I don't know if you can sustain it. So yeah, Vertigo is very good. The other one I read in here, all of, is The Invisibles. So yeah, I don't have this edition. They had like an edition. These are like the smaller books, and they also have these editions that contain like, you know, like 3 of these volumes or 2 of these volumes or something. This is a very adult series. you know, you have all this controversy about SJW characters, and you know, people wanting to identify with, you know, if they're trans or whatever they want to see themselves. This book had this in the 90s, and it's a fantastic story, and you don't ever find yourself feeling like you're being preached to, except for, like, you know, in minor ways. Like the characters, it comes from the characters itself. The character itself has a conviction. It's not the writer like trying to make all of the characters tell you how to think. So, you know, and you have this fantastic art, these fantastic concepts. And, you know, this is one of the longer runs I've read. I mean, that, you know, it's got a beginning, middle, and end. And, you know, there are points where, you know, it could be trimmed down, maybe, but it's kind of like the prequel Star Wars is you can't take anything out without ruining it to some extent. But, you know, maybe you could shave a panel off here, and have a much tighter story. But it was fairly tight I think it ran for 4 years. So, you know, more or less it was excellent. And in the midst of it, it's by Grant Morrison, if I didn't say that. Grant Morrison had a health crisis. More or less, King Mob is one of the main characters, and that's more or less his cipher. And he does something to King Mob where, you know, he's in a lot of pain and stuff, and then Grant Morrison gets sick. So from that point on, he kind of like gave King Mob a better situations to be in. So yeah, I do highly recommend The Invisibles if you're an adult. I wouldn't buy it for children. And it was very, very enjoyable, you know, crazy at times, but it was a lot of fun. So these are all the Rebirth titles. I have barely looked at Rebirth yet. I've got an omnibus of all of the initial titles. So I think we're going to draw DC to a close, and let's take a look at Marvel. So yeah, I mean, ever since, I would say, like, of course, the book I'm reading now is Jeff Johns' run of The Flash. I'm in volume 2. I'm almost done with that. And then I think I'm reading a Marvel book concurrently, but I cannot think of what that is right now. Oh well, because, you know, I got close to finishing the Flash book, and my tablet has very limited storage space. It only has around 16 megabytes. So I guess we're going to take a quick look at IDW, because I just clicked that instead of the down arrow. That is one thing I don't like about this site. So I don't know if I have any IDW books. I have at least one called Shaman's Tears in paperback, which I enjoy. It's just 12 issues, and it's about a guy who grew up on a reservation, but he couldn't stand it, and he ran away as soon as he could, and he becomes a federal agent, and he ends up back on the same reservation, where he finds out that he's the heir to the gift of the shaman's tears, and he becomes kind of like a shaman superhero and fights injustice. And I think that starts off really good. I can't remember who wrote it right now, but in the middle, he has these other characters that he must have wrote in some other book, and he wanted to bring them in. And some of the stories seem to get lost on that, but it kind of came around at the end to an extent. But yeah, I kind of feel they had canceled it. He knew it was canceled, and the last few issues were lacking a little bit. I think it started off very strong, and maybe he knew it was going to be capped. Maybe they said, okay, you can finish your 12 issues. Of these books, I did read, I had Unlimited for a little while, so I read the first chapter of Lock and Key. That was pretty good. I also have the audiobook, and in my opinion, it gets rated highly. I got it for free, so I can't really complain, but in my opinion, the way they translated it to audio, it's confusing to listen to. You don't really know when I read the book, it's like, oh, I know exactly what's going on. But when I was listening to the audio, it's like some of the voice acting drove me crazy. So yeah, that's IDW. If you have a favorite IDW title I should spend more time on, let me know. Well, like right here, people would like this, I think, because you have Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've never been a Turtles fan. The Turtles happened while I was out of the country, when I was in the Army in the 80s, and I came back and there were these things called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I thought they were horrible. If you ever are out of the country for a little while, and especially back in the 80s, oh, this is a very good book from hell. This is the Jack the Ripper story. I have this one. I bought a used copy, I think, from Amazon several years ago, and that was before that was before 2015. That was after 2012, when I became very interested in Ellen Moore. And so I would say, is this the best Ellen Moore book? This might be the best Ellen Moore book. This is, again, it's a very good story. It's got a beginning, middle, and end. It might have a little bit of fat, but it's a comic book. What are you going to do? It's sometimes you have to fill pages, but I would say it has very little fat if it has any. And I thought this story was really, really good. So I'm glad to discover. I do have some IDW books I've read. 24, I don't know how that would work as a comic book. I thought the first season was the best, then I thought the fourth season was pretty good. Otherwise, it was an entertaining show, but it just didn't necessarily, I mean, how do you hold up that? I think that might be a way to go, where you want to go with an anthology series for something like 24's, excuse me, every year. I guess like American Horror Story, which I've only watched the first season of that. We might look at Oni later. I am just looking for, I guess I have to go to sales. Now, you won't always find the sales on the front banner. You can see there's a bunch. So we're going to look at the massive Marvel Holiday Collection sale next. Let's go to view more. Vision, I am so looking forward to Tom King's. They're coming out with like a full collection. I think it includes what they call the director's cut. I don't know if it will have issue 1 as originally printed and then issue 1 at the end, but I'm excited to see it. That's coming out, is it next month or it's February? It's early in 2018. So this just sounds like one of the most interesting books I've got coming for next year, and so I'm definitely not going to buy it. But here you could, this is volume 1, so this will be like, I think the first 6 issues. I think it was a 12-issue series. So if you wanted to, you could pick this up for $2.99. So some of these prices look better than DC's. You can see some of the books I have here. So I have AVX, which was Avengers versus X-Men. I did read this. I enjoyed it. I think on back issues it might have got a mixed review, but I thought it was very good, very fun. Of course, you have these superheroes fighting all the time, and they're fighting over Hope, who is this new mutant that's born after Scarlet Witch wishes them all away. I also own the Spider-Verse now. To be honest, I was only able to get through half of this. I read through the main Spider-Verse book. Then they had some other books at the end. It's not an omnibus. It doesn't contain the complete story. And it's like they're trying to get you to buy every book. But if I would have known, I would have, even that, this is like $29 regularly, and it's $8.99. It's I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to it. I don't know why. It should be something I love, but there's something about it that I didn't love. Here's Secret Wars. I think this is the 2015. Now I've got the hardcover of this. It was okay. I never read all of the tie-ins. Here we go, Planet Hulk. We talked about that one. I read the whole omnibus of that one, except for near the end they had what do they call him? They have another Hulk, and he annoyed me. It started out with some woman telling him how smart he was. You're the 4th smartest character in the Marvel universe, and it's like, why are you spending all of these? Why aren't we seeing what he can do? Why aren't we? so I read a few pages of that, and then I thought maybe I'm just not giving it a chance, and I kind of flipped through the rest of that story. But more or less, I say if you get the omnibus I talked about earlier this year, I would just stop at that point because I don't think there's anything of value. World War Hulk, we've unpacked that one. I have not read a single story in this one yet. And again, these are not the omnibuses. These are going to be the collected editions. It's going to be like essentially World War Hulk, I think. I can check that real quick. They usually tell you what it includes. So yeah, it collects World War Hulk 1 through 5, so it's not going to be the full story. Now, I did recently rewatch Planet Hulk on back issues after I read this, and it seems like this is the good one, and this is the one I guess you don't have to bother with if you don't want. House of M. Now, I think I've got all this in single issues. I think I got the whole event when that was on sale, like my first year of Comixology. This is a very good story, too. I don't know if I needed to try to read everything in order. I found a checklist, and like the Spider-Man story was very good. That was like in his own book and crossed over. And but at the same time, I don't necessarily think it was worth it. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. It's very cold today, and I had a space heater in here, and I just had to turn it off. I was starting to get very warm, so that's good. Maybe I can close out this video without having the space heater on. So, yeah, like I say, I guess I'm excited to read it because who doesn't want to see the Hulk destroy everything? I just hope it doesn't end up being like Civil War, but yeah, I can't really tell. Age of Ultron. This looks like it's a different. I got just the. I got this one. I don't have this edition, but this one looks like it's the complete event. The main story. I mean, it starts off interesting enough with like I think it's Hawkeye finds Spider-Man, and for whatever reason, Ultron has taken over the world and he's operating from the future. But how they resolve the story is Wolverine decides to go back in time and murder Hank Pym before he can create Ultron. And Sue Storm, for whatever reason, tags along with him. I think it's maybe because her kids died, Franklin and I can't remember the daughter's name, but so she kind of wants Ultron to end too, but yeah, I don't know. I wanted to know how to really stop Ultron. I mean, going back, I don't normally have a problem with time travel stories, but this one I didn't like. Maybe I would have liked it better if I had the whole event, but probably not. So. And again, I'm not shopping for myself. For a little while, I had, I had Marvel Unlimited, and I read Infinity War there. One of my biggest, the biggest thing I'm waiting for next year is the Infinity War collection. It's like a big box set. If you watch my video on Secret Wars, with the ones that from the 80s, I have this big treasure chest of books, bigger than my hands right now, but that's what fits on the camera. So, and I did a video of unboxing that, and I really enjoyed that. Now I've read parts of but Infinity War, Jim Starlin. I think he's great. Yeah, I just called him Jim Starlin, didn't I? It's Jim Starlin right there. And so, yeah, I don't want to confuse people with somebody like that. So, so yeah, let's see. So this is a smaller sale. They also have a Star Wars sale. I'm not big into Star Wars anymore, but when I was a kid, I would say Star Wars was one of my favorite things. So let's go take a peek there. Maybe. Okay, Vision. Here we go. Like, I think one of the great things about when I grew up is we didn't have VCRs. We couldn't watch movies over and over again. The movie was in town for how long it was in town. They did have dollar theaters, which were great. You could like go there and stay for the whole day. They didn't really care as long as, even if you didn't buy food. But I could read Star Wars over and over again. It was 6 issues, and mine were all reprints. And that's sort of like when I became aware that there could be some value in Star Wars. Now, all of these are later Star Wars, and I can feel myself falling asleep. I don't want to make you Star Wars fans mad. I think if you love it, it's great. I love comic books, and it's just Star Wars. I kind of started falling out of love with Star Wars with the original third movie, Return of the Jedi. I watched it again recently, and of course it was the one that George Lucas screwed around with, but I enjoyed it a lot more. I don't know if that's nostalgia or because the prequels were so bad, but The Force Awakens, oh, here we go. I mean, I kind of always wondered, if you look at this cover, let's see how closely we can look at it. I don't think, oh good. This confused me a little bit. I mean, of course they have to make Darth Vader's helmet a different color, but I didn't understand necessarily why it was green. But of course you got this dark background here, and you have to be able to have contrast. But yeah, it was so much fun, and added a little bit to the movie. I didn't necessarily pick up on the rivalry between Han and Luke for Leia's affections. And I think that might be another good thing about Star Wars, is even though there was romance there, it wasn't overbearing with the love interest. Like a lot of times, even if a book or other property doesn't have a love interest, they feel they need to insert it. But I mean, sometimes that can be okay, but I just kind of like how they did it in the original Star Wars, as opposed to Anakin and what's her name? Princess Amidala, Princess Padme, whatever her name is. I haven't seen those since they came out, but look, they have the comics. So this was great. And after these first 6 issues, they had to come up with stories, and they didn't necessarily know what to do because, there's a timing issue in the publishing industry, especially back then. Nobody was drawing on computers. I don't know if that would have made a difference. They still needed a story to go out after the next ones. And nobody knew when they got this whether Star Wars would be a hit or not. So what they ended up doing is they have Luke and Leia out of the scene, and they have Han Solo off on his own adventure. And essentially it's the Seven Samurai, or the American version you might know as the Magnificent Seven, and they have this giant rabbit. And as a kid, I loved it. I mean, I didn't necessarily like that it was the Seven Samurai, but it wasn't terrible either. And so I did really enjoy that part. I can't remember how far I read into this. I do know eventually Luke comes back. I think I remember in the first annual, Ben Kenobi is talking about how Darth Vader killed his father, and they had this fight, and he pushed Anakin Skywalker into the lava. And so even when I saw The Empire Strikes Back, I did not necessarily believe that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father. I thought it was a trick. And I thought that all the way through the movie. I go, they're going to I mean, it didn't, I really liked, and I think The Empire Strikes Back is still my favorite movie of the trilogy. But for me, Star Wars is a thing in the past. It might be fun to get these at some point, but I don't know that I want to pay money for them. But yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is you can preview the issues, see the artist to your liking, and yeah, this is taking me back. So this is pretty cool. I might have to get the omnibus of at least the first 6 issues, maybe the original entire Marvel run. I don't know. You're drawing me back, but only to 1977 through 1986. That's it. That's where Star Wars ends. Okay, then. I'm not sure how long I've been going because I've been in shared screen mode. So let me go ahead and stop well, let's just go look here. Whoops, that's graphic novels, sorry. Let's go here. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to explore. And the other thing is, if you buy digital comics from Amazon and your account is linked to Comixology, you can read the books you buy on Amazon in your Comixology browser. And also the Kindle, that unfortunately doesn't work the other way. The Kindle is a pretty good comic book reader too for books you buy off of Amazon. I don't know about the let's see, like on your computer, you can go to the cloud and watch and read your Amazon Kindle books. And I am not sure how that works for the comic books, but you know, I still say the tablet is your best bet if you want. Yeah, if you're interested in that. I think the only other company I've read was Oni. I'm looking for. So yeah, right here, let's just look at Oni once. Now, I read Letter 44, and what's the guy's first name? His last name is Soule, Charles Soule. Now, I read most of this, and you can see probably the issues I've got. Now, what I did is like, I bought Letter 44 originally on, oh, I'm adding all to cart. You don't want to do that. Luckily, it won't do it for all of them. I think the cart can only hold up to 99 things, but I did not mean to do that. Anyways, so I could probably, I think Letter 44 is over now. I might have all of this one in single issues, and then this one, you know, I didn't get to the conclusion. There was just this episode or issue where the characters, I mean, everything was a bad situation, but every character, even the ones who you want to identify with, were kind of acting evil. So I stopped reading it at that point. You know, I don't know if it got fixed. Yeah, I don't like that I did that. Luckily, I'm not buying anything, so you can easily remove things from the cart. So I think we're going to go ahead and let that do that. I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to minimize that so I can see myself. And so, yes, other things coming up is, what did I do with it? Dang, excuse me one second. Oh, I put them on this side. So I have Pigman 1 and 2 by Bosch Fawstin. These are the signed copies. I'm working on a review. There's his signature there. And some people got confused or wondered because his signature is very similar to his printed signature. So that's very good. My signature is bad. So in that one, there's his signature. And anyways, these books are fantastic. They are very, they can be very disturbing, especially to those of us who remember 9/11. They deal with the after events of 9/11, and a comic book writer named Killian Duke, who creates Pigman to take on the jihad in the comic books. And it's very good. I just pre-ordered the 3rd issue, and I think they're all available on Comixology, the first 3 issues. I think there's a 4th issue coming, but it's very good. It's very philosophical. It's it reminds me a bit of The Dark Knight, and I'm working on a fuller review. I've got my unpacking videos done for that. I'm very proud of my hastily drawn cartoon for the 2nd one, so I'm going to get those up at some point. And again, remember to hit the like, subscribe. Do you use Comixology? Do you like it? Are you disliking it because you don't want to get a tablet? I mean, there's nothing I can tell you about that, because that's just, you know, if Comixology had an app for Windows, I think that would be fantastic. Then it would be very easy to read, because what you do is you download the book onto your device, but it only works through Comixology. So when you're kind of streaming it, live streaming it, so to speak, it doesn't necessarily work as well, but I love it. I especially love the guided view. You get, like, you know, you just flip with your finger and you get like panels at a time. Sometimes that can be a little confusing because especially in the older books. They'll have like a thing in the center, like a guy in the center, and you'll have words going all around it. And sometimes the guided view doesn't, I mean, it's confusing. They're very good. The editors at Comixology are very good, but you think, oh, am I missing something? Because there are occasions like where the guided view hasn't worked, but it's only been like, once or twice in my experience. And I'm not going to say that it didn't work, but that it just had a surprising result. Or I thought like, they might have like a panel here that's all long, and it, the guided view is taking you across, it takes you to this panel, then this panel, and then this is supposed to be the last panel, but it takes you there first. And so that's happened maybe once, maybe twice. It's very rare. No system is perfect, and I think you take the faults of it with it. So I really do enjoy Comixology. It's a great way to carry all your books with you on vacation. I also like the physical books too. I like the weight. I like being nearly crushed to death every time I read Jack Kirby's Fourth World Omnibus. But that's that. So I'm going to draw it to a close. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your patronage. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I know like our Christmas is past for most of the United States, but Orthodox Christmas, I think, is January 7th. So Merry Christmas, Orthodox Christians, and Happy New Year to everyone who's celebrating New Year's on January 1st. And I know even that isn't necessarily celebrated every way. So, yep, going to stop recording now. It's like I haven't done this in so long. I've missed you guys. So I'll try to be back sooner next time. Bye.